glad to be back. The first thing I want to do is we have a very special week, and we have some special guests with us for Galvez Week, and I'm very, very excited and appreciative of Adrian Walker and Amy Miller. The city has worked hand in hand with many organizations to really, I think, have an even bigger presence for not just one day, but actually for an entire week. And I know you guys, we had sent out some information about everything going on, and I'll go through some of that we'd love to have the public involved because we know the impact that Galvez has had on the city of Pensacola, a great impact. So I wanted just to introduce a few special guests that are with us this morning. First, we have the mayor of Metropolitan, Antonio Campos, with us. And standing right there, thank you for coming in and visiting us. So he's here from the birthplace of Galvez. We'll be here this week. Councilwoman Soledad Montanez Garcia, also from Metropolitan. Thank you. And we also have Dr. Diane Buck with the Intercultural Connections, and she's helped nurture this partnership between General Bernard Galvez hometown and Pensacola. Also, we have Miss Maria Davis, the former honorary consulate for Spain.
It says I'm live.
And
I do it on
as
the
well
wrong
as her
one?
son, Lipo Davis,
On
who now
DC's
serves in
page?
that role. So, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here and being such a big part of
Should I change it?
making this celebration special here this week. Again, we love our visitors will be very busy this week, as will I, and we have our community Galvez celebration on Friday, which includes a 9 a.m. ceremony at the Galvez Monument at the intersection of North Halifax and Wright Street. At 10 a.m., we have a service at the Basilica of St. Michael the Archangel. And Saturday from 10 to 2, the Historic Pensacola Village and all of the museums operated by the U of F Historic Trust will be free and open to the public with special activities and exhibits centered around General Galvez and the role of the Spanish troops in the American Revolution. So lots to do on Friday, and very, very excited for that. Other things, I told you I was gone. I got back yesterday from a trip to ST Engineering in Singapore, which was, I learned a lot. Some of the takeaways really, number one, just that with the city of Pensacola and its MRO operations, just a small sliver of everything that ST Engineering and ST Aerospace does. It's the largest, one of the largest MROs in the world, and it's quite an operation that they have. They're doing more than just MRO. They're of course rebuilding engines, everything else. I was able to see their world headquarters and take a tour there, as well as learned a lot through a lot of their smart city technology, and we've started to have some preliminary conversations about potential partnership as a pilot city with ST, and being able to use maybe some of their smart city technology within the city of Pensacola, perhaps. That would be certainly a benefit to us, maybe something that we couldn't otherwise do or afford to do, and it'd be a benefit to them as they continue to grow things in the United States. So we talked about that as it pertains to parking technology, parking availability technology, also intersections where we have some difficulty. I mentioned on radio this morning, one of those that first comes to mind is the intersection out at the beach. That is not a city intersection, but it affects us. It has a great consequence to the city, the county, the beach, and some of the technology that they showed would be a significant help in an example like that, as well as some others in the city. So I was able to learn a lot and continue to build the relationships for our largest economic development project, not only in the city of Pensacola, but in the region in terms of our investment. So a couple other things. I want, speaking of parking, a parking update for the first quarter of 2024. We had some record-breaking numbers. We had 9,900 total transactions. We had 9,200 paid transactions, which is the most we've had since 2002. So it's the busiest paid transaction week. That is has nothing to do with cost increase of May. That was the first quarter of this year. What I think what it speaks to is the seamless technology that has been put in place with the Park Mobile app. I think that gives us a good indicator that we know that there were more people parking here than in previous years because of the vibrancy of downtown. But to see those numbers be strong shows us that we're making this experience easier, which was our goal with the change of the app. Curbside recycling program. We have the RFP closed on April 8th, and Adams Sanitation and Waste Pro both put in proposals for that RFP, and they'll both give oral presentations on May 22nd to the selection committee. So we will, so both of those will move forward, and then we'll meet with the selection committee, and we'll continue to move in the process that we spoke of earlier, which is not only are we entertaining these, we're kind of looking internally as what they would provide and what our service would look like afterwards, and what our options would be to the customer. So we continue to move forward with getting some new and improved version of curbside recycling back to the citizens, or at least that option to do so. Mayor's Neighborhood Cleanup in April is in the North Hill area, collected nearly 48 tons of bulk waste, 105 tires, and 1,445 gallons of paint. So 28 loads were picked up on April 27th. That continues to be a great project, a worthwhile project to help our citizens get some of that stuff out of their homes and disposed of properly. Community response specialists, I want the same thing, give you kind of a Q1 update. We've got some data and want to share some of that with you. First 3 months of the year, our community response specialists are two, Tom and Brittany. They had 395 interactions across the community. From those interactions, 133 accepted direct service, whether it was food, water, temporary shelter, or housing, or information of where to go. And then the second quarter is already really beating those numbers. 253 total interactions in April alone, 91 accepted direct services. So as we continue to implement this new unprecedented program within the city, we're starting to see some of that activity go up. And just an example, we had someone, we were able to help someone apply with Social Security benefits last month, and one of our CRSs assisted. And through that assistance, we were able to find out that person could have gotten some early retirement. So they helped them apply for the benefits associated with early retirement, applying for Medicaid and food assistance, and then they'll also qualify for a phone, which could go a long way in getting them back on their feet. That's just an example of what one of those interactions can do. Is not necessarily that the city's providing the service, but we're able to provide the information and the resources to get to people where they need to go. And I believe in the third week in April, we had another example of someone, I believe was from Gadsden, Alabama, that couldn't get back home, and we're able to work. The county has that Connect program, and we continue to refer to that Connect program to get people back to where their family is, and that's where this person's father was and brother was, and we were able to connect them back to their family members where they have better success to get on their feet. So very, very pleased with the process, and as that young program continues to move forward, we like to see it getting busier and busier, because as we all know, there definitely is a need. Roger Scott pool bathrooms, the crews demolished the Roger Scott bathrooms last week, as we've been planning on doing. Go ahead and get those demoed before the pool season. We'll have a nicer temporary facility in its place, in a better location than it was in previous years, and then we'll be ready to go day one when pool season ends. We obviously don't want a pool bathroom construction happening during an open pool season. So we made that call many months ago, I think maybe in December or January, that we just didn't want to force it or push it to where we've got active construction having to shut down the pool. So that'll be our cutoff point. We got the demolition done, so we are clear and ready to go. Three more things. The Civicon, May 13th, John McCarmine will be here at the Wesley Abbey building at First United Methodist Church. As you guys know, that's who we've asked to work with us to really provide two deliverables. One is to see what right fit looks like in terms of a potential low barrier shelter, and to give us objective pro forma amounts of not only what the easy part is to try to figure out and diagnose the upfront costs. The harder part that I'm very interested in is the operational cost. Because as I mentioned to you guys before, our goal is always to not only just start something for the sake of starting something, but it's to be sustainable. I'm not interested in investing city dollars into something that will be closed in 60 days or 90 days or 6 months. It's got to have staying power, and for me to feel comfortable with that, that's why John's visit is very important. So we've had some pre-calls with them. We've collaborated and continue to collaborate with Escambia County and their staff. I appreciate Wes and Liz Kissel over there. They've been part of these conversations with John, because this is a joint effort. Even whatever dollars the city spends, whatever the dollars the county spends, have to be working in tandem for this to be effective. And so we continue to have that collaboration with them. Very appreciative for that. A quick strategic plan update. Pensacola 2035.com is live. We wanted to give an easy website to convey. Pensacola 2035.com. You can go there and fill out the survey that Gail has put out for us. I know we've got hundreds of responses already. I don't remember the exact number. I know we were in the high 200s or so before I left. So and it just gone live. So I'm sure we're continuing to grow from there, and appreciate you guys getting the word out on that. Any questions out there about it, or would rather interact on the phone? 850-435-1636. And yeah, all we're asking people, it's a very short survey, is to log on and complete it and make sure that your voice is heard in terms of where we want to bring the city. Last thing is the JC's marker unveiling. This is something that's been quite in the making, I believe. Actually, a lot of this process started before I was sworn in. That we're getting a new historic marker on May 23rd. It'll commemorate the 1955 JC's Little League team, which was the first all-black team to compete against an all-white team in the South. This will go up across the street in Community Maritime Park, and this team, you guys may recall, you probably reported on at the time, the subject of the documentary Long Time Coming, a 1955 baseball story, which is currently on Amazon Prime. And we will have a member from that team join us on May 23rd, so very excited for that, and want to give credit to Mayor Robinson, who started this process. I think it was just starting right before I started, so glad to have that up and going. And that is everything that I've got, and happy to take your questions on that or anything else.
Mayor, so I understand there was an item on the agenda yesterday talking about how city department heads, if they want to make a purchase that's over $25,000, they have to go before the council for that. I understand you wanted to see if the city council could push it up to 100,000. And what I understand is now you want to table that for now. So why is that? Do you want to go back and do some research and try again, or? Yeah,
so I think there's some miscommunication a little bit on our end, and just so you know, background, our staff has been working with council staff to kind of try to ultimately modernize on many fronts, and there's several things that are changed. I understand the big headline is going to be what's the clearance for the administration to spend, but there's several things on there that provide clarity, actually, where ambiguity would favor the administration. In fact, we are proposing that there be more clarity that favors the council and is more of a detriment, I think, in terms of flexibility for the administration. So I think that shows our goal, and I'm confident the council's goal, council staff's goal, is to take something that in cases is 10, 20 years old, and modernize that for today's times. The reality is $25,000, as many organizations, including the county, recently has gone up from because of the cost of doing business. I mean, if we just were to take inflation, 25,000 was set in 2006. What do we think 25,000 would be today if we just kept it at that number? So, yeah, I do believe, I know there was comments previously that say that these are two independent issues. I don't think so. I think the clarity that's going to be provided on what does and does not go to council is completely correlated with what flexibility the administration has to be able to not take 3 and 4 months to do something that would cost $26,000, and knowing what little you could do under that amount. So these two items are completely correlated. So we're we're not pulling this out of some adversarial stance of critique. I think we're going to get back and collaborate and come up with a viable solution that makes sense for everybody. Because in my opinion, what we can't do is change one part of it and then not the other part of it, and because there's too many moving parts to make sure that this is successful. So we'll own that, and we'll make sure that we get it right and make sure that we have better clarity around how the entire process works. All 7, 8 of those changes correlate together.
Staying with City Council, it was also brought up that City Council wants Pensacola Police to do something about noise downtown, cars with loud mufflers going down Halifax Street. What are your thoughts on that, and how could that be enforced?
Yeah, exactly. I think I don't disagree. Let's talk philosophy first. I don't disagree. I think we're trying to promote walkability. We're trying to promote outdoor dining, those things that entertainment that bring vibrancy to a city. And I don't know that a lot of people travel to Pensacola to hear loud mufflers, deafen their ears. So I don't think that's part of that solution. That being said, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. We are looking at kind of reimagining Halifax. We're working on that now. We've talked about that now for a little while, but because we are due to have resurfacing, alongside FPL, after all the utilities have been cut in. So we're talking about in some aspects whether that be limit some parking, widen sidewalks. A lot of conversation to still have there, but that's one way to look at it. But I'm open to any solution that can be enforced, and I think that's the most important part of your question is, it's one thing to say we don't want it, it's another thing to say, how do we enforce it correctly? So what I normally do in these situations is I look for best practices around the country and say, who is not just identifying that there's noise, but that we've got the infrastructure in place. Because if we just identify, let's say we put technology in that helps identify that noise, but we don't have the infrastructure in place, be it the police, be it code enforcement, whatever the mechanism would be to enforce anything, then we didn't really help matters. And so, I think we should entertain a holistic approach of what can be identified at what times. So we're going to have to probably get a little granular on what that solution looks like. But I want to see a solution that works all the way through, not just the identification, but a realistic implementation and enforcement that allows it to be a real positive solution.
You mentioned repaving Halifax. What's the timeline on that?
Well, a few things have changed. If you recall, actually right when probably within a few weeks of taking office, the project was due to just be repaved, which was the obligation of FPL after they cut in the utilities. It was a section of Halifax from ultimately Garden to the crosswalk at Plaza Ferdinand, and then that resurfacing was going about a half a block east and west on Romana, on Government, and that it had been predetermined in terms of where they were cutting utilities. There was a timeline at that point for FPL to complete it within 2023. So once I got word that this was going to happen, and again, this was right after I started, I said, hey, this is a once in a generation opportunity to look at. This is our iconic street that we brag about, that was considered one of the 10 greatest main streets in the United States. Let's make sure that we're taking a good look at this when we're going to go in and do millions of dollars of work, even if it's FPL doing it. How can we collaborate? So we started that conversation with FPL then to say, well, while you're doing this work, maybe if we wanted to add this, if we wanted to do that, we kind of ran some what if and had some conversations with local downtown business owners at that time. So this would have been at some point in maybe post second quarter of 23. Well, then FPL made the decision. I don't remember what time it was reported, where it is on the timeline, but around that time, FPL had decided to push off 2023 projects across the state to 2024. So we were what was once under a time crunch to get done within 2023 for FPL to spend those dollars. That time crunch went away ultimately. So that left us into 2024, and it allowed us, which as the world turned, kind of was, I think, helpful, allowed us to kind of get our feet under us, not have to move too quickly into how we would want to potentially reimagine Palafox. So those conversations continue now with FPL. We've had conversations about whether they contribute their portion of the project and we manage it, whether we collaborate on it still. What I can tell you is there's no such thing as 100% agreement downtown with, do you do the work during the day or at night? Do you take a couple parking spaces away to create more sidewalk, or do you not? I can bring 10 downtown business owners in here and I'll get 5 of them will like one and 5 will like the other. That's part of this job, and I appreciate very much our downtown business owners' investment in the city. I used to be one of those, and I know what it takes, and how it is the lifeblood of your family, of many families that work at these small businesses. I don't mean that in jest. I mean that it's just a difficult situation to navigate and to make everybody happy, and I don't think that we will. But what that timeline has allowed us is we are now at the point where we're working through to come up with some multiple option kind of visionary plans for Palafox. And maybe ones that maybe it's a good, better, best type of situation where we can say, what do we want Palafox to be? So we're working on that now, and then my goal is to present that back to downtown business owners, to the public, to the community, to get some feedback about what we want Palafox to look like, and then we'll probably get more into the weeds of how it's funded, or is FPL, are we managing a project and FPL paying their portion of the fixes that they need to make, those types of things. So that's a long way to say we kind of tabled what was going to be something that needed to get done really quickly. We've been able to, by the fortune of happenstance, we've been able to kind of delay that and get it done the right way. So we're in the process of that now. I expect to see something this summer where we can start to have some kind of visionary, what would be renderings, ideas about what Palafox could be, and most importantly, general price tags of what that could be. So we can design something really nice. We got to figure out a way to pay for it. But I think it's one example that these are the types of things that parking revenue can pay for and help pay for. And we'd actually already earmarked that. If you look at the budget previous year, we'd earmarked some dollars out of parking, just without having the full numbers yet, towards this project that we still have earmarked now. So these are the types of projects that it's the city's obligation to share with the residents what they get for their money, for their user fee. And this is a perfect example of that. Jefferson Garage is another example of that. So we continue to move it forward, and I would say we'll know more this summer.
Mayor, does the city plan to join the continuum of care? They're asking for members.
If I'll certainly entertain anything that reduces homelessness and brings more federal dollars to our community to help reduce homelessness. If that's the question, I'll have to see what that means, in terms of, and if that's something that they're asking of us. I'm not sure if the county has weighed in on that yet. I would have to analyze it before I'd say I'm definitely going to do anything. I'll have to understand it a little more. But I can say from a philosophical sense, if city participation is needed, and I certainly I'm appreciative and support the work that the COC is doing right now alongside their federal partners that have to come in and take a fresh, objective look about where we were and where we could be. And so if that's something that can be helpful and lead us to positive outcomes and reducing homelessness, we'll certainly entertain it.
All right, one other question. Washington posted a story about rising sea level, 6.5 inches over the last 10 years or so. Lori Horning was part of it. The city was a big part of the flooding here. What's the reaction from you and from the city?
Yeah, so we, as you may have seen, I'm not sure how much, what sections of it is out there. Yes, exactly, yeah. So we're obviously familiar and worked with Washington Post when they were down doing that work. And, the numbers don't lie. I think that's the reality of where we are. I appreciate Cynthia and planning right now as an example. We've just completed our vulnerability assessment that outlines some of that. And what that does is it sets us up for, we are where our feet are. And if we want to get grant dollars, federal, state grant dollars to help offset as much as we can, then vulnerability assessment, and having all of that data will help not only assess what is needed most, but also show that there is need here, and that we would love to get dollars to do those things. I mean, we talked about the breakwater as an example. If that becomes some viable solution to help better protect our downtown, then that's something that needs to be analyzed. And without analysis, it's kind of hard to get a grant. It's kind of hard to get support. So I just, we've tried to be proactive in getting the information, the data that's, and I think they've had their 2 meetings with council and cascaded the information that came out of that assessment. And I know we are now better equipped to start finding solutions as best we can. So, it's that it is our reality at this point, and I think it's our job, the city, the county, the region. It's our job to do what we can to protect us for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Mayor, going to parking, I know the city increased rates, and I understand in that conversation there was a point brought up that the city wasn't making a lot of money with parking. So with this increased rates, could that help with that?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple things to understand. A couple misnomers out there. One is a lot of people think that parking enforcement, that there's a lot of revenue in parking enforcement, which it's a natural human reaction. You get a ticket for $25 and you say, well, the city must be making all this money. By the time you pay for the actual enforcement, the vehicles, the people, the tickets you do collect or don't collect, depending on what happens, that is not a money-making venture. What it is it's the mechanism to you have to have enforcement in order for people to comply with what the rules are. What I would say is, if you go back and look, we were kind of in some ways on the bad side of both. On one hand, we're charging, which means a whole process, right? You got to get on an app or you got to go put something in, but we weren't charging enough money of which to come back and say, hey, citizen, for your money, we're going to reimagine Halifax, we're going to redo the Jefferson Street garage. What I can tell you is the entire city was making about as much revenue as some of the individual parking lots on the private side. Now, they were charging whatever they wanted, $4 5, and continue to do so. That we are not charging, we're charging $1. But just to give you perspective, thousands and thousands of spaces. And so, on one hand, so when someone says, hey, well, why wouldn't you make it free parking? If we were required by law to keep it at 50 cents an hour and 30 minutes free, then that would be a consideration. But the goal here should be is we've got to anticipate this growth. We've seen 30% activity growth downtown in the last 2 years. We've got to look at ways that, because how we can learn a hard lesson is when it's time for a new parking garage, when it's time for new infrastructure downtown. We could keep charging 50 cents, not make enough revenue to take on those things, and then all 55,000 taxpayers, whether you use downtown or not, are now on the hook to bond money to do those types of things. If we could get user fees from our visitors, from our tourists, a very reasonable one at that, then that's us trying to anticipate growth. That's not us, waiting for the problem to get to us. In terms of making money or not making money on parking, I think we've got to get ourselves in a place where we can create enough revenue to come back to those users and say, this is what it's paying for. The same way you see signs for local option sales tax, this is what your half-cent paid for. I would say that's probably one big opportunity for improvement in the city over years of time, is to say, here, let us show you what you're getting for your money, that you're not just paying something in and never hearing about it again. And so that's my job, my obligation. And since we started this parking reform, that's something that I'm committed to.
Mayor, at the county commissioners meeting last week, the discussion of TDC and the Chappie James Memorial came up. And one of the commissioners said that he had received a letter from you outlining the city's position in terms of ownership. Would you summarize that letter and the city's position for us?
Yeah, so there was some confusion around, apparently, there was some confusion around whether we thought we owned it or not, and I think maybe I'd gotten misquoted into saying that we weren't sure. I mean, it's on the Escambia Property Appraiser's website. I mean, it's clear that the city owns the property. So we had sent a letter conveying that, ultimately, that said, hey, this is city property. So what decision the TDC makes or the county commission makes certainly is up to them. Those are not decisions in my purview. But we were just sending a letter to provide clarity as to who owns the property and who doesn't, because the conversation started to be, well, if the city doesn't own it, then who does, and can funding be used, those types of things. So again, I totally respect the county commission's decision and the TDC's decision on what they want to do with their funds, and if they look at that as a good decision or not a good decision. But I've sent 2 letters in that respect. One, to clearly identify that it is city property, what's being discussed here. And number 2 is our general support for the project. We have put funding up, but I understand arguments on both sides that were presented during that county commission meeting, on all sides, from be it Visit Pensacola, where I was board chair. I understand what they're saying. I understand what the Chappie James folks, and I don't think anybody disagrees on the validity of honoring a great man, a great Pensacolian. So how they get there, I don't know, but all we were doing simply was providing a letter to say, this is city property if this was causing any confusion.
The Greenway, the Hart C. Williams Greenway.
Yes.
Could you give us sort of a quick snapshot of where we are?
Yeah, absolutely. So the RFQ went out for the, and very specific, not an RFP, an RFQ, qualifications. Show us what you've done in stormwater and how you've helped not just reconnect with a park, but reconnect the community, which is what this project's about. And so I believe May 16th is May 16th is the date where those proposals will be heard by the selection committee. So those are in. Do you remember the number exactly? How many we've gotten in? I don't want to give you the wrong number, but we've got multiple RFQs in, and so we'll hear from them and what kind of vision they convey for a monumental project in our city. So they're very excited to continue to see that move. That will not be a fast-moving project, but the amazing thing is for the first time in 20 years of this conversation about this project, we've got funding to do something about it, and that's what we're very excited about. In addition, we're working with RCRA to get some additional information as they do their CRA update. We've asked for additional information to help us with a framework plan of not just what happens when the park goes in, but how we respect and continue to hold the community around it. Half a mile east and west and north and south, not just build a park and walk away. And so I know we've started to have conversations about getting citizen-led groups group together, like a Friends of Hall C. Williams, to help us not only with information about what they see as a vision for this, but to continue to be stewards of that for years to come, because we think that's an important part of this.
The U.S. Treasury, through the restore process, has looked at a lot of designs and imagine. Is the city? Are you reimagining what this could be? Is this a new look at what Hollis T. Williams could be?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've asked the people who have put in for RFQs. It's within RFQ to say, hey, imagine this as a new project, so that doesn't mean that there won't be similarities. And specifically, I know HDR worked on that project previously. Alan and his team have done a ton of work on that. That does not mean that their work wasn't valid or wasn't very good. But I think what's different today versus then is designing to a general vision and now designing to a real budget. I think are 2 different things. And so I think anybody, if they were to do it over again, if you knew what the budget was and you got X million dollars and X has to be used for stormwater, those types of things, well, that's going to change the look of the project. So by no fault of previous designs or anybody who gave information on previous design, that I think the evolution of how we've gotten here and the funding to get here is we want, a lot of time's also passed, since then. That community engagement was done during COVID, if you recall. some of that was done during COVID. So, it gives us a bite at the apple, another bite at the apple within a real budget, tangible budget. And so we wanted it to be addressed as kind of a new thing. Again, that's not a commentary on the previous. It's just, we did not want a visionary, a project that has specific funding sources, funding obligations to be hamstrung by a vision for a project that didn't have those previously. So that's, I want to make a clear distinction there. That's not dismissing all the previous work, community engagement that's already out there. Certainly, that's a product that we own, that we have, and at the right time, we obviously can make sure that those are integrated.
When you say branching out from the current design area into the surrounding neighborhoods that are affected, are you talking east and west, or just in one?
Yeah, what you see is what cities learned about 20 years ago, as we started taking these projects that you take an interstate that disconnected a minority community here, 1.3 miles, and then we say, oh, well, let's come up with this project to reconnect. And there's many examples of these projects around the country. Some that are underway right now. I think of there's one called a Low Line in Charleston right now that's underway. They're multiple years ahead of us, but same concept. So what I think cities learned about 15, 20 years ago is they said, well, that was great that we reconnected this community with a park, but if we simply just look at it as adding a park, a lot that may not respect the reconnection of which the spirit was born from this project. So what cities have started to look at now is framework plans of whether it be policy, whether it be partnership, citizen-led, public-private. What do we not only provide this reconnection, but we also now say, well, hey, 5 blocks to the east and west, let's make sure that grandmothers who have lived there since before the interstate were there have the protections to continue to live there, as an example. So there's things that can be respectful of the reconnection of which we desire, that a park can't solve on its own. So that's what we're looking to do, and so that's what we're going to work alongside the CRA update to do, kind of an additional addendum that says, help us with a Hollis C. Williams framework plan that allows us, be it through many different channels, that we make sure that when we say we're reconnecting a lost community, that we're doing that in more respects than just a park.
Talking about the community response team, looking at their growing reactions and people accepting help from them, do you think that unit could potentially grow and get bigger?
Sure. I mean, I think we're always going to look at if there's more need out there. There's certainly something that we can provide. Where I see the growth getting bigger is to Rick's question earlier about better partnership. I think one thing that I think we're putting our hand in and saying, hey, we're not hoping someone else is going to do something, that we wanted to take this head on. But we need our partners. I mean, where are we sending the people that we are getting outreach with? Where are we sending them to? The city is not a front to back solution for reducing homelessness and getting people off the street. We need those services, and so I think the phase 1 of expansion and growth would probably be less about adding more staff to our group, but certainly we would always entertain if needed. But how do we continue to enhance the services around that allows us to have more successful outcomes as we interact with these people? So whether that's getting them home, whether that's getting them to services that they need, whether that's working on low-barrier shelter. I would say it's a multi-layered investment approach that may not just be the staffing of that office, but what can we provide that makes sure that when we are getting outreach with someone, they're able to get to us to a better place than they were before.
Last question.
Yeah.
So Florida ranked top domestic tourism destination in a recent announcement by the governor. Visit Florida data ranked Florida as U.S. premier destination for domestic tourism, and data shows Florida's domestic tourism market share climbed to 14% in 2023, and then it continues to increase. So what are your reactions to this, and what do you think is driving that increase?
It's great news, but not a surprise. I think what you've seen post-COVID, more people moving here, and the data suggests that it's a great place to visit and a great place to live. Yeah. I always talk about anecdotally back to my visit Pensacola days was, it's amazing how many people end up moving here because they visited here, you know, and you said, man, this is so wonderful, or they started living here half the time. So, you know, I think Florida, especially I can speak for Pensacola, sells itself just as a beautiful place to live that has this, you know, again, Pensacola, this 1-2 punch of a beautiful, world-class, most beautiful beach in the world, and you've got this awesome character, vibrant downtown. Not every beach community has that, and so, you know, I'm not surprised by those numbers. And it's the numbers that we see ourselves. Again, we just even in how many people are walking around downtown from 2 or 3 years ago has changed so dramatically. So, so we love to see that. You know, sometimes visitors can get, you know, with us locals can get a bad rap, but when you understand how much visitors create jobs, create opportunity here, and I believe the stat from 2018 or 19 when skate came in, they analyzed the ocean economy and how versatile your ocean economy is. 93% of our ocean economy here in this community is tourism. 93%. If you go to Mobile, you go to New Orleans, obviously it's more diverse because of the ports, things like that, where it might be 45 or 50%. So, so tourism is a very, very vital piece to what we do here. And so I'm appreciative for people to come visit here, enjoy it here, and tell their friends and maybe move here one day. I think, you know, I think that exposure and that tourism is more valuable than I think some of us locals know. So, so very grateful to hear that, but not surprised. Anything else? All right. Again, welcome to our visitors, and thank you guys again for being here. Appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. So nice. I know you're the present busy.